Welcome to the Cowboy Up Podcast, where talk is all about the West. This episode is brought to you by the Dude Ranchers Association and Golden Wings Horseshoes and produced by Cowboy Spirit USA. Water rights, climate change, international trade, alternative energy, immigration. All issues that farmers in southern Arizona and around the Southwest have to deal with, including today's guest, Arnold Burruel, who talks about it all with Russell and Alan.
Morning, Alan.
Good morning again. I'm always glad to be here on a Monday morning. So it's another
Saturday morning.
Saturday morning.
Saturday morning. Those weekends jump away. So you had cattle at the 200,000. Lazy B was 160,000 or 200,000?
160.
160,000. Yeah. When you get that big, what does it really matter? How many miles was it from one end to the other?
You know, it was probably it was fairly contiguous, which was good.
Right.
But it was probably about 15 miles each direction, roughly.
I always want to ask you because I sometimes talk about trying to put the scale of your ranch compared to our 3,000 acres, which would be just like a homestead at your place. And of course, then you had the 45,000 acres in Nebraska at the Rex Ranch.
Yes.
Which is a famous old dude ranch in Arizona near Amato, Rex Ranch.
That was a beautiful ranch. Loved that ranch.
Did you know the yours?
Rex Ranch? Yeah.
And then of course Mustang Meadows, the 35,000 acres in South Dakota. And I guess you grew alfalfa and hay there?
We grew a lot of hay there and had alfalfa and prairie hay both. And so not to the extent that our guest today had hay, but we put up a lot of hay there. And
how many cuttings would you get up there?
You get one, but sometimes really 1.5. You know, when you get through with one, if you have a nice warm fall, then it'll go ahead and grow, and then you can get about a half or 2/3 of a cutting in about the first of the year.
Well, and we'll ask Arnold in a minute what Arizona brings. But anyway, our guest today is Arnold, and he has all kinds of insights into ranching and farming. He does it big and does it well. Grew up on a ranch in Mexico. Then moved to Arizona, where he founded Burruel and Burruel Farms Partnership. His farms are located in Marana, just outside Tucson, also in Eloy, Arizona. I think maybe where you got your start, Eloy, no?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And, of course, Arnold also is involved in rodeo. He was past president of the Grand Canyon, or is past president of the Grand Canyon Rodeo Association. That's our Arizona state group. Still competing. He was out, he told me, 4th of July weekend. Didn't they used to call 4th of July Cowboy Christmas?
I think they still do.
Yeah. I said they kind of ripped that name out of and use it at the big shows in Vegas over the NFR. But 4th of July weekend, always one of the biggest rodeo weekends. Where were you?
Well, I was up in the White Mountains, and Santa Claus kind of forgot where my tree was. I missed a couple of steers for big money, but I did win in Springerville. So
cool.
Had a great time, had a fun time. But yeah, Santa Claus needs better directions.
I like the way you word that. So how often do you compete now?
As often as I can. There's a jackpot every weekend in the team roping. Calf roping is a little harder. You can't find a
You
good
still rope calves?
I still try to. Yeah.
Wow.
At my age, it's more of a try to than actually.
I got to watch you walk and see if your feet are fast. You know, you got to have the quick feet for that.
Yeah.
I always say it's the most athletically demanding event in rodeo.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Because you got to ride.
Yeah.
Got to rope. Got to run.
Got to get off quick.
Dismount on the run. Yeah. Throw a 300-pound calf and tie him in 0.3 seconds or else you're slow, and put all that together and win? Unbelievable.
I got the slow part down. So the rest of it,
What's your favorite? What do you like to do the most?
Rope calves.
Rope calves.
Yes, because it's so demanding on the horse. And to watch a good calf horse work is a thing of art.
Tell me about your best horse right now.
My best horse right now is retired, and he's packing some kids around, teaching them how to rope right now. But he was flat out awesome when he was young and really good.
You raised him?
No, I bought him. I previewed 300 horses with a good friend of mine, and we were going to write some numbers down on the preview and said we'll buy any numbers that match. We looked at 300 horses, and we both had one number on our page, and it was the same number after looking at 300 horses. Huh? And we bought Bruce that day.
Wow. Mm-hmm. And it was a good decision.
It was a great decision. A lot of great memories on that horse.
And you owned him yourself.
Yep.
And you really bonded with him, and he was your number one right from the start?
Yes, he was. He had no personality whatsoever. You didn't have to pet him. You didn't have to brush him. You didn't have to do anything. Leave me alone till you need me.
No
my
kidding.
kind of horse, yeah.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I never heard somebody that loves that kind of a horse. Most people fall in love with their horse because
I love the personable horses, but he wasn't one of them. He was a professional.
He just did it, huh?
Yes. Consummate professional.
Yeah.
Hauled easy, took care of himself, never forgot to eat and drink when we were on the road. A lot of them get nervous and don't.
Calf roped and team tied, both?
Calf roped and heeled.
Heeled?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. How old is he now?
Oh, Bruce is probably in his mid-20s now. And when I was not feeling up to par, some things happening in my life, I lent him to a friend who won the turquoise circuit on him.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the horse has the buckle, I don't. Yeah.
Well, there's always that, there's a friend of mine, and it was a calf horse. He just mounted a bunch of guys and bought a house.
Yeah. With the mount business is long storied.
Yeah.
You've got a great horse and you're not exactly a great roper. You can make money just hauling that horse and letting people on him.
And so you share your horse quite a little?
When we were making Bruce, there's a fellow we all know, Jeff Frizzell. He and I, we tag teamed the horse. We both had to ride him because he was kind of a little snorty when he was young. So we'd use him every chance we got, both of us, at rodeos as often as possible. And if we could con somebody else into getting on him, we'd do that too.
No kidding.
And it kind of made him. Yeah.
I'll be darned.
Kind of pounded that piece of iron into the shape that he needed to be in.
Well, and I mean, our listeners would want to know that, how do you make money mounting people on your horse? It's called mount money, and it's 25%.
Exactly.
And so it's kind of like a contingency fee lawyer. You get nothing if they don't win, and you get 25% if they do win. And so if you've got the good horse, you're mounting the good riders because you don't want to waste your horse on somebody who's probably not going to win.
Can I do a little advertisement right now?
Do it.
Absolutely.
All you guys that still owe me the 25%, it's 25%, okay? I don't think I even collected a 10%.
You want to spell it out for
Yes,
huh?
Absolutely. You know who you are. I'm not going to say your name on the air this time.
There'll be a letter there'll be a bill in the mail.
There better be a check in the mail. What do you think?
Well, I have a friend, and he's a financial guy, but he was on a tear, team roping, and his horse went lame, and it was going to be lame a while. So he goes and borrows a horse, and the guy says, "Why don't you just buy him? I'll sell him to you for," this was quite a while ago, $7,000. And he goes, "No, I don't like your horse. I'll just pay you if I win." And so he says, and I kept winning, and now I've paid him $10,000 because he'd won $100,000 on it. He ended up winning $100,000 on the horse. So what would that have been? $20,000. So he said, the guy,
$25,000. You do math like
$25,000. $25,000. Yeah. So,
see if you get invited back.
Yeah, exactly.
You would think I'd done that on purpose. So so the guy comes back he says, "Okay, I'll buy the horse." He says, "So I paid the mount money. I'll give you $7,000." He goes, "Oh no!" He said, "That horse won $100,000."
He's worth a lot more than that.
Now I got to have 15. So he had to pay the mount money and 15.
That's funny.
So he's at 40, 15 and 25. Yeah. Okay, I did good math that time. So did you have a ranch in Mexico?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. It was a communal ranch. They're called ejidos. And so we owned some if you will, propia property of our own. That was mostly irrigated fields and where the ranch house was and stuff. But you would throw the cattle out on a communal range. And so when you would gather in the fall of the year and brand, you had to identify what calf belonged to what cow, and then you would brand accordingly to whoever the ranch was. And so that became a little problematic, and some guys were a little bit liberal on what they thought their cow had for a calf. So, but all in all, I mean, that's the nature of the beast. Yeah, there was a lot of twinning going on. But that was
for the listener. That's the stealing.
Yes, that's stealing.
Yeah.
Yes,
Two calves.
Yeah.
Twinning is two calves, which is about never.
About never. It's as rare as you can get. But yeah, that's where we kind of started life there. And then before that, Dad had come to the U.S. as a young man, 14 years of age, when his father died, and they drew straws, and Dad got the short straw, so he ended up having to come across and get a job because there was no income after Grandpa had passed away. So he came across, and his first job was working at the Bisbee mine, which was interesting because I just did my first tour of the Bisbee mine and didn't realize the conditions that Dad had worked under. I came across in 1941 the first time. The last time he came across with us in tow. Dad maintained legal alien status until 2001. He actually took his oath on 9/11.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's an all-American story.
It's along the border, anywhere, it's the same story. There's a lot of stories like it. That's how we were made, right? America?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So if we went down to the Hito?
Ejido.
Hito.
Mm-hmm.
How do you spell?
Ejido. E-J-I-D-O.
Okay, because I've heard about them. I never knew how to spell. So if we went down there today, and it was Roundup time, of course it wouldn't be right now. So we go up in the spring or the fall. Same thing, communal Roundup, old school like America in the 1800s?
Well, I'll tell you the ugly truth. You probably would never get there, and you would be led back out at gunpoint because we all know what's happened in northern Mexico, and it's cartel country now. The little town that Imuris, where I grew up in, is extremely cartel country. So don't try this at home.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow, no kidding. Today, don't go down there.
I would not recommend it.
So, but are they still running it that same communal
way? The same way. I doubt if the ejidos in their true form are still in that area could be found. I would imagine one person owns it all.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
One person meaning cartel?
More than likely. I'm gonna guess. Yeah.
You don't go down there anymore?
Nope, I don't. It's been a long time since I've gone anywhere but a tourist trap in Mexico. It's been dicey the last time I went down to see the old homestead and stuff. So
you just thought this is goodbye and I'm out of here.
Yes.
Glad to get out.
Glad to get out. Yes.
Wow.
So my business partner helps run the other ranches. Jay Wells ran sewing factories in Mexico for over 10 years, and his biggest area was Nuevas Casas Grandes, and he talked about how idyllic it was, and the middle class, hardworking, family-oriented, no violence, safety, beautiful. He used the word idyllic. And then the 08-09 recession hit, which impacted, he tells me, the drug buying habits of America, the U.S., which disrupted the economy of the cartels, and everything went wrong. Do you believe, is that true?
First of all, Mexico per se doesn't have a drug problem. They have a cartel problem because they have a neighbor with a habit.
Exactly.
So, the two are a perfect.
I like the way you word that, by the way.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah, and I don't think our government really wants to do anything about it because we're not attacking the addict as hard as we're attacking the traffic. So I think that's another subject for another day.
But as we leave that, you have relatives down there or no?
Yes, quite a few.
are their lives disrupted and impacted, or can they isolate from that?
The lives never really change. It's there. It's pervasive. It's always there. You learn to live with it, and you learn how to skirt around it.
Yeah, and I spent a little time down in Alamos, and learned to love Alamos. And it's there, but people just kind of walk around it.
Yes,
I mean,
it's
there, but it's not.
Yeah. But
doesn't affect you. To
give you some idea, the most of my men, and I have 16 men in the field every morning, and they're for the most part, you hire one guy out of a really good family, and pretty soon you have the whole family. You want the whole family. But my boys are mostly from Tequila, Jalisco, Mexico, and you have two job opportunities as a young man in Tequila, and that's one is working the tequila fields, the agave fields, and the other one is working the marijuana fields. Those are your two choices, and the bosses are quite different. So yeah, so that's what you have.
It's just life as it exists.
Life as it exists. Yes.
And on that, we'll take a break.
Hey there, this is producer Lynn Wheezy Sneed. After 3 seasons of being hands-on with this podcast, I got to be a guest at a dude ranch. Along with my husband, we were celebrating our anniversary. How was it, you ask? Well, it was fantastic. We had so many activities to choose from. Horseback riding, of course, but also archery, which I loved, shooting, e-biking, a Jeep tour, arts and crafts, swimming, and then there were the delicious meals, can you say fall off the bone ribs, and happy hours and meeting people from across the U.S. and Europe. I have to say, Dude Ranch vacations are now a mainstay on our bucket list, and our resource for deciding where to go is the Dude Ranchers Association. They have the intel on 92 ranches around the West and are so helpful matching our needs and wishes to the right ranch. I encourage you to check out what Dude Ranches have to offer, whether for your family or a weekend getaway with that special someone, or even a solo retreat. You can reach out to the Dude Ranchers Association at duderanch.org or call 307-587-2339. Hey, I hope to see you on the trail.
It's been the news forever, and people have talked about it. This is one of the first questions a thoughtful guest asks me when they come here, because, of course, our guests come from everywhere. Where do you get your water? What's the situation with water? This and that. But we are kind of in a crisis point now. How's that impacting you, the water situation, and tell us about water in general and what. I mean, it's huge. That's a 4-hour topic. But.
Yeah. I don't even know where we're going to start with this one. I guess with the obvious, the two largest irrigation districts in Arizona were both cut off from CAP water. I sat on the CAIDD board, Katy board, which is the one in Eloy. The CAP water represented 60% of our water.
And I'm going to interrupt. CAP is Central Arizona Project, and that's a canal from Colorado River that terminates in Tucson.
Perfect. Yeah. Or actually south of Tucson. I guess it goes all the way to FICO, Farmers Investment Company. But anyway, we lost that. So now we're dependent on the well field, which we have pumped dry once before, to irrigate about 40% of the existing farms is what we can service. Our large farm that is in Eloy, I bought that farm conscious of the groundwater that it had, and it's probably one of the 2-3 wettest farms in Pinal County. So the impact to us personally was a lot less than the average, but there are a lot of farms in Eloy that have immense amounts of water rights and don't have enough groundwater on the farm to represent 10% of their needs. So it's a communal thing right now.
Groundwater meaning that they can pump.
That they could pump, but because we have the canal system and the distribution system, we've linked our wells together, and everybody's feeling the pain equitably, if you will. The flip side of that nobody ever talks about, we were talking about this earlier, is with the lake levels going down to the point where Powell was almost a dead pool. A good example, my non-CAP farms, the ones that I have here in Marana, they're all groundwater. They're all on electric wells. I was getting 100% of my electricity through my Hoover contract, which is a contract that was set up for agriculture now a little over 50 years ago to help agriculture survive. It was just renewed for another 50 years. But since they couldn't deliver Hoover electricity because they couldn't generate electricity, last year I only pumped 15% of my Hoover, and I had to go out on the open market and compete with everybody else for electricity to run my wells. Competing against people like the city of Tucson, the copper mines south of Tucson, whoever needs electricity, and we were just out on the open market. So I've seen about a 300% increase in my water costs.
You have to lay land out as those costs go up?
It costs more to lay land out than to keep working it. So you just bite the bullet.
And why is that? Because of the opportunity cost lost, or because it has a long-term impact?
Well, when you're set up to farm 6,000 acres and you've got all the equipment, you've got all the men, you've got all the infrastructure, you lay out more than the land.
Sure.
So all the tractors have to work, all the men have to work, all the diesel has to be burnt. I mean, you got to do it. So, and we're lucky that the water represents only about maybe 20% of my total expenditure to farm. The average hay cost, as you know all too well, has gone through the roof. Not as much as our expenses, but there's enough of a buffer there on what has seen an extreme amount of inflation to offset it. So, we have to keep farming it, and we do. And we have, as I was telling you earlier, we take care of 17 feed stores between Marana and Lake Charles, Louisiana. Plus, we export hay to Saudi Arabia, China. Some of our hay has ended up in Great Britain. So dairy industries around the globe. It's a small world now. It's a global economy, and we're part of it.
How much of your job is developing those markets for your hay? How much do you do personally in that? Less now,
because basically all of our customers are long-standing. Basically, and we're lucky in this industry that if you find a producer that can meet your needs, you don't let them go. We're not really out there competing for the customers.
They're competing for you?
They're competing for space in our barns.
No kidding.
Part of our inventory, yes.
That's a good place to be.
It's a good place to be.
Yeah.
It's a good place to be, yeah.
So when the hay goes to Saudi Arabia or China, do you ship it over to a port? I assume it's LA?
No, it goes through a broker.
It goes to a broker.
In fact, there's a broker here today picking up the last 15 truckloads of my last contract. They take it to UD Press. I think it's over along the California-Arizona border, and they'll make ultra-density bales out of it so they can get more in the container. So they'll recompress what my baler has done. Mm-hmm.
They take 100-pound bale and put 3 together or something like that?
No, they take a 1,250-pound bale and they try to make it the size of a shoebox is what they do.
No kidding.
And then they put it in the containers, put as many as they can on one of those boats, and off it goes. Like they say, slow boat to China. Mm-hmm.
Wow. And how much of your hay production goes that
Very
way?
Little of ours. We're more into the feed store business. That's probably the lion's share. And I'll be honest with you, if I put an exact number to it, I'd probably surprise myself, but I would say it's between 50 to 70% of our production ends up in Texas.
Huh.
Really?
Yeah, the equine industry there is huge. The goat industry is huge. They're big demand.
You don't think of goats eating hay, you think of them eating trash and what all, but goats
some of those industries, they want a high quality feed for their animals, and they're not just going to let them graze out in the backyard. They're going to really push them.
A little aside, but same subject. I'm sure you're aware, but Los Angeles has gone in the goat business, and they're using goats to take down the growth, the fire danger in downtown LA, and they move their herds around, and that's the best way to take down the fire danger in LA, and they're doing it successfully.
I didn't see that
quite a lot. Yeah.
I
pretty
know guys
interesting.
who have contracted to do that.
It's easy for me to believe that LA's a bunch of goat herders, but but I didn't quite see it coming. So, Dennis Maroney, a friend of ours who raises the Criollo cattle like us, he sometimes rents his churra, which is the original Navajo sheep, Spanish origin. He rents them out to the solar farms to keep the grass down so they don't get some fire to go in there and damage all that expensive stuff. What are they doing with?
Let me address that little thing for a second. So our biggest farm, the one in Eloy, it's 2,200 acres total. And as I mentioned earlier, it's one of the wettest farms in Pinal County. Is under contract. This is the last year of the contract, but it looks like it's going to happen. And Enel Power Group is going to turn it into a solar farm and retire that farm. So it will no longer be an agriculture farm. It'll be a electrical farm.
Oh, they're going to put
Solar panels all over the whole thing.
All over the whole thing.
250 megawatt solar plant, yes.
So what are you going to raise in the shade then?
Well, I'm going to cool in the shade, I'll tell you that. I don't really care about raising anything after that. But.
So what happens so you said it's one of the wettest farms in Pinal County, which for anybody who's listening, that's north of Pima County, which is Tucson, and south of Maricopa County, which is Phoenix. We have big counties in Arizona. What happens with your water rights? Or do you have groundwater rights?
Yes, grandfathered water rights. Yes.
So what will happen with those?
They'll stay with the ground.
With that ground.
They can move around inside the AMA. So if somebody else needs those water rights, they could be transferred. AMA is active management area, and that's governed by the state of Arizona Department of Water Resources. And so it could do that if somebody needed, but you have to have an excess of water and a need for water rights to do that. And we don't have an excess of water in Pinal County, so I doubt if they're going anywhere. They'll stay with the farm.
And you're leasing it. You're not selling it to the solar. You're selling it. Yes. So they'll have the water rights with it.
Yes.
So if 40 years down the road or whenever the panels expire, they could resume. What are they doing with goats in Texas? I got to ask. Are those milk goats or meat goats or both?
Milk goats, meat goats, show goats.
No kidding.
Whatever. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And they're eating alfalfa?
Yeah, they might be shipping them to California for all I know. LA. So.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Get them trained
and I'll supply them. Hey, how does that sound?
And what you grow alfalfa and Bermuda.
Alfalfa, Bermuda, winter pasture mix, which is a 4-way mix, and teff.
Yes. So teff, tell us about that, because that's kind of a new for this area.
It's kind of an annual grass. It's a lot like Bermuda in its makeup, but the big thing about it is, if you will, I guess for lack of a better word, is hypoallergenic. So if you have a horse that has allergies, teff is what you feed. And for some reason, it does not activate or excite the allergies in a horse. So it's a good feed product for that. Nutritionally, it's about like Bermuda. So it's not exactly the complete feed, but it'll keep a horse calm, fed, and keep his allergies from flaring up if he's got that problem.
Is that what they grow in Utah? They told me they can't grow Bermuda because it's the state judges Bermuda an invasive species, so you can't propagate it. But is teff something big up there? I was trying to remember what they grew up there.
I thought all they grew was kids up there.
Yeah, they're good. So you once told me, talking agriculture, this was Pima County. We live in Pima Indians, Pima cotton. Mm-hmm. You called cotton the poverty crop.
The poverty weed.
The poverty weed.
This year is a perfect example of that. Yeah. So we have probably the lowest, or one of the lowest intended acreages, or by now planted acreages of cotton in the history of the U.S. The cotton price today is probably equal to what it was around 1958. Cotton has just not fought for its place at the table. Every other crop, if you will look at corn, soybeans, whatever, rice, is competing for a spot at the table. They need acreage, so they'll escalate to get the areas that are able to grow it enticed into growing it. Cotton has remained stagnant. In fact, it's even backed off. The pricing is probably today a dime lower than it was a couple of months ago.
So they just do more synthetic,
exactly
synthetic that we wear.
Less, I read a good article about that. One of the mills, a guy that ran one of the mills, was saying that when he buys a lot of cotton, and I think usually a lot is 500 bales, and each bale weighs 500 pounds. So he buys a lot of cotton for the mill, and he orders a specific strength, staple length, crimp, the whole 9 yards. But when he gets it, there's such a variability within that order. But if he goes out and buys, quote unquote, a fossil fiber from somebody who's spinning a synthetic, he gets exactly the same fiber all the way through.
But it's big variation in the natural,
the cotton. So, that creates a problem for the mill. And
can they adjust? Obviously they can. I mean, they can. Yeah. This is a bad batch, this is a good batch kind of thing?
Well, I think they have to have like 3 cans. Okay, well, we were going to make high-end shirts, but that's not going to work, so we'll make mid-range shirts, or we're going to make denim jeans. It goes into wherever it goes to, whatever can it lands in, if you will.
You're not in any part of that part of the process?
No, I'm not. No, I'm not even growing cotton anymore. And
Oh, really?
Cotton is what got me into the game.
Yeah.
Pima cotton specifically. And yes, slowly but surely, I realized that
you got pushed out, or you vacated on.
I just realized that the parameters that I used to base my planting intentions on were not true, and that's that supply and demand. Right now, world inventories are at their lowest in probably 40 years as far as inventory of cotton.
Really?
I do believe that per capita, the United States is still the biggest users of cotton in the globe. We, as an average, we buy about 3.5 pounds of cotton per capita. So we have low inventory, low intended planting acres, and the biggest cotton growing state just came out of a major disaster last year, and that was Texas, West Texas. A lot of the dryland cotton didn't even produce, not even a pound per acre.
So is now the time, and it's now the time to get in?
No. The price is
at the low as it's been.
Yeah.
Isn't that when you should jump in?
If you believe in...
If you're strong?
If you believe in the old economics that we used to, we were taught, were tried and true rules, supply and demand. There's no supply and there's no demand.
Well, you didn't get successful by not paying attention to all of this.
So. Years ago it worked.
Yeah.
Now it doesn't, and I supply hay, and there's always a demand. So I just kind of went for the world shoving.
You leave cotton alone, and you raise hay.
Absolutely. You grow enough cotton, and you will be alone, and you'll need a loan.
On that, we're going to take a break. I love that.
Yeah, and that was terrific, and we're going to see if we can entice Arnold to come back. That has been terrific. Thank you. Alan and I always want to thank Fred and everybody at Golden Wings Horseshoes for sponsoring our Cowboy Up podcast. These revolutionary horseshoes are like no other. And as they like to say, and I know, horses love them. They're made from a special non-metal compound. It took Fred 10 years to come up with it. I always ask him, what is it made of? Oh, I don't know. Well, okay, that's a kind way of, it's proprietary, and it should be. Took 10 years to get there. They're comfortable for horses because they absorb concussion and they are flexible. And, the big negative to putting metal horseshoes on horses, and you got to do it, despite what some people believe, some territory needs shoes. And, of course, metal doesn't flex. These do. They flex up and down and in and out. And when a horse's foot hits the ground, the ability to expand out is really healthy for the inner structures of the horse's hoof. I can absolutely, without hesitation, testify that these horseshoes, Golden Wings horseshoes, have helped a lot of our horses. Some are only on the trail because of them. And, of course, I told the story, I think, a month ago that Barb is winning buckles on her mounted shooting horse that had been retired until Golden Wings came along and put him back into competition. We have horses that were out of commission, and they're back on the all-day 18, 20-mile rides. So go to Golden Wings, plural, goldenwingshorseshoes.com, goldenwingshorseshoes.com, and they'll get the, and Fred, man, they're fast. They'll get the shoes right to you, and your horseshoe is going to be your new biggest fan because they're so easy to put on.
Well, I've been just fascinated today by Arnold, and he's just a fountain of knowledge about Arizona and Arizona water and Arizona cotton. And you've just told me things I never dreamed about today. And so I've just been really thrilled to have you here and hear what you've told us.
Well, I appreciate that. I want you to know that you've probably have met me before, but you didn't know it. I'm just a country boy. I'm a Hispanic.
I hadn't heard that term
Yeah,
before.
well, it makes it a little different, but us country boys, we tend to pay attention to a lot of things that affect us, but we don't get to town much. So we know a lot of stuff, but we don't get to tell anybody about it. So I'm glad you asked me. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's just been great.
Hey, thanks for tuning in today. And thank you to the talented Stan Husted production team for making this episode possible. Arnold Burruel will be with us again next week to continue the conversation about land, climate, rodeos, and more. If you have stories, comments, or questions that you'd like to share, reach out to us through our website, cowboyuppodcast.com. That's cowboyuppodcast.com. Until we meet again, I'm Lynn Weezy Sneed, reminding you to sit tall and ride safe.